If you watched my 10-minute and 58-second long video about why BTS's dolls are good, you probably know where this is going. I'm going to unbox all 7 BTS dolls, and I'm going to go into excruciating detail as a lover of dolls why they're still good. I've only opened 3 of them, but my opinion hasn't changed, you guys. I'm going to be looking at these dolls in 2 different ways. 1, as an ARMY, and 2, as a lover of dolls. So I'll get a little bit more into the technicalities of how the doll was made and why Mattel likely chose to do what they did. We're going to go in fan chant order, so we have Junie first. Oh, I already know that I'm going to hate having to open 8 of these in a row. 8, 7. It's fine. Everything's fine. So first up, he's handsome. I really am impressed with the face sculpt. The first thing that's easy to notice, and the thing that I already mentioned in my last video, is they actually sculpted in Namjoon's dimple, which just such a wonderful little touch. I do really like the paint job in person. They did a good job glossing it, and the sculpting does match him very closely. They even, Namjoon has slightly fatty upper eyelids, and they did add that into the sculpt. It's not super defined, but it's a little attention to detail that they did put in there, which I think is super awesome. The construction on the clothing is also very interesting. Adding a lot of layers onto a doll makes it really bulky really quickly. So what they did with these is, so they have the first layer of they have the layer of the undershirt there, but the back of the undershirt isn't there. They only have the collar. Everything else is the suit jacket itself, which makes the outfit on the doll a lot less bulky, and it is super clever. There is a fair amount of glue in the doll's hair, but not as much as I was expecting. The most glue I've ever seen in a doll's hair was the Prince Derek doll that they did for Barbie's Pop Dancing Princess. You literally, it would crunch when you touch it. This is just a little, it's stiff, but it's not all the hair is covered in glue. It is a little crunchy though, but it's very, very nice. I'm not a super big fan of Namjoon's hair for this one. They did a good job mixing the different colors. They have the blue and the gray in there to give it the unique color that Namjoon had during Idol era, but I don't know. I'm not a super big fan of it. I would probably reroute this one, or I would probably make a wig for this one, to be honest, just because, I don't know, not to my taste personally. I wouldn't have done Idol era either, to be honest. I wouldn't have done Idol era. I love Jin. Second off, I really, really don't like the styling of the hair on this one. I know the limitations of it, but I don't like this one. This is probably, out of all of them, my least favorite of the hair. I know everyone automatically points to Tae's, but Tae's was doomed from the beginning. There was no way they were going to replicate that hair in a good way. Let's be very real, you guys. It wasn't happening. Now he's all stickly. I love the molding on Jin's face, especially his lips. Although they used a kind of the paint. I don't know if it's just mine. Let me compare that to Jun's. Okay, so the way that they've done the paint jobs on these are kind of speckled in a way, which when you look at it up close, it's a little weird. But and looking next to them, you can really see the noses and the lips are so different between the two of them. They really put a lot of thought into that. The eye molds are slightly different too. I appreciate the attention to detail. That's really awesome. Their shoes are the same too. I think there's like 2 different shoe types I noticed. They have like 2 different shoe sculpts that they just used across both of them, which is smart because that's an easy way for Mattel to save money and make these dolls more affordable. Honestly, like the majority of the cost for these dolls probably came from the licensing. Jin, yeah, the way that they layered the hair is very awkward, but of course you have to take into consideration the, that at the small scale it is going to look a little funky. But like that face sculpt is gorgeous. He's going to be a really fun one to customize. And the head is very maneuverable too. The articulation in these is just so good, dude. And Jin actually has like half of a hoodie on. They did the same thing on this one that they did with Namjoon, where they only made the front half of the garment and then the back half is the suit. But Jin's got like half of a hoodie. So we've got like half of a pattern for a BTS hoodie. So like I'm going to be deconstructing that one later to go ahead and make my boys some hoodies. Jin's sculpt is so good. I'm just going to be talking about how much I love the sculpts on these the whole time. I'm warning you guys now. Oh, that's disappointing. Here, I'm gonna take a picture of this to show you guys. There's like a glob of glue on my Yoongi shirt, which is disappointing, but oh well. I love the blushing on Suga's cheek in particular. I think is just really cute. Like they all have very subtle blushing, but I think the blushing on Suga's cheeks are the cutest, and I'm really happy to see like his cute little pouty lips, cause like they got his nose right. They got his nose right, which makes me really happy, cause like I had the opportunity to have a high touch with BTS. I've only done it one time, and it was at the highlight tour, so but the thing that I remember the most was seeing Suga's nose and being like, oh my god, that's the cutest nose in the whole world. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. And like, I don't know why that's the one thing I focused on, but I really, like, his nose was something that just like stuck with me. And they got his nose right, so that makes me happy. His, yeah, he's cute. He's cute. I like him. This is my boy. I love J-Hope, and I think I'm already going to like super love him. He looks so handsome. Okay, so like this is something that I like would not expect Mattel to add in, but I can already see he's missing his lip mole, and I'm going to fix that. I love his lip mole. Also, I don't think, I'll have to check, I don't think, they probably don't have like any of their moles, but if Jungkook doesn't have like his chin mole, under lip mole thing, I'm adding that on too. Oh, his scar. Ooh, there's so much fun things you can do with that. Okay, I'm getting off topic. There we go. I'm pretty sure they all have the same, like, body mold. I'm gonna have to look into that more. Well, that would be one thing that I would, like, super love to see Mattel do different, would be the different body types, because all of them have such different bodies. But that would be asking a lot since these are mass-produced dolls, and I don't expect that. Like, they're already really beautiful and better than I was expecting. Oh no! Oh no, okay. So, one thing I have noticed is, I thought this was paint, but it looks like the glue that they used to, like, keep his hair in place. Actually, he has stuck onto his forehead, and we had some like little stray hairs in place, but that's okay. He still looks good. He still looks good. Okay, I was worried it was paint. I was about to be like, whoa, that is. I would have been really surprised if Mattel had sent that one out, because they're normally very good about making sure that paint doesn't go in places that they aren't supposed to. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is different shoe type. It's Jose Pez's, and forgive me, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, is Valentina's shoes, the ugly ones. The ugly ones he really likes. Jose has a really unique jawline and really unique nose compared to the rest of BTS. And I think they did a really good job with this one, with his. His lips are thinner too, so they did reflect that. I'm not a huge fan of the paint job on his lips, but I do like the sculpt. I think this would be something that's easy enough to fix. And his hair is not bad considering the hairstyles I had to emulate. It would have been cute if they had tapered his little curl a little bit more, but I understand why they wouldn't be able to do that on a mass-produced doll. That would be expensive. And I really do like the molds on the shoes, and I like that they're white because that means I can customize them and paint them. So thank you, Mattel, for making it a little easier for me. And yeah, I just really like his. I did notice, like, their skin tones are too pale. They aren't this color in real life. It looks like Mattel was handed like the press photos from the release of Idol, where they're all whitewashed, and they were like, replicate this. So it's not, the skin tones aren't true to them, except for like maybe Suga, because like he's quite pale. But like Hoseok's not that pale, Namjoon's not that pale. And they're all their skin tones are uniform. When they do have a bit of variety in real life. Alright, next we have Jimin. I like his mold already. I don't like his hair, but that's fine. Again, we're working with small scale. That makes it downright impossible to make it accurate. Interesting. Oh, is it a real tie? It's a real tie. That is such a cool touch. Oh, I love that. I love that a lot. That's a really fun detail they didn't have to do. Dude, okay. Alright. Go off, Mattel. Shit, alright. So he has the same shoes that Suga, Jin, and RM have. And it's, his sculpt is really pretty. I have a bit of glue on his forehead, but that's okay. He has much more defined jaw than the other members, and his lips are bigger. And I was really afraid that, you know how like the makeup artists sometimes put like concealer on Jimin's top lips to make his lips look thinner. I was really afraid that Mattel was gonna do like a similar thing, but no. His lips are there and there's the full beautiful plump glory, and I love it. Yeah, he looks really good, man. He's gonna be so much fun to do a face up on. I already know I'm gonna have like way too much fun with him. Oh, so beautiful, so beautiful. Now, we're gonna do the controversial V. So V was the one that everyone was like, oh, his hair looks terrible. And they did end up changing his hair slightly, because it was longer and they ended up cutting it a little bit shorter, and it looks like the back of it might actually be straight, which I don't remember whether or not it was like that before, but let's dive right in. I'm excited. Ooh, oh, ooh, okay. One thing that I have noticed right off the bat is when you go ahead and root a doll, oftentimes you'll paint the scalp underneath the hair to be the same color as the hair that you're rooting, so that when you put the hair in and you flatten the hair out, if there's any holes, you won't notice them as much because the scalp is painted the same color as the hair. Taehyun's scalp's been painted brown, did they do that with Jin too? No, Jin's a skin tone. What about, yeah, and Hoseok's is black, Jimin's is, he's got brown, Namjoon's got like a gray, but I don't know if this is true across all Taes, but it is mine. My Tae's got a brown sculpt, and so you can see that through the pink and through the blonde, and it makes it look like he's got like dark roots, which is cool, but not at all what he looks like in the video. They also went ahead and they made only like the top layers of the doll have the kind of crinkly one, which makes it lie a lot more flat. It looks a lot better than it did in the original pictures. And then we have the flat in the back, but I think that flat hair is still too long. He had like an undercut, didn't he? I can't remember. Let's find out. Okay, yeah, so he did have it go down a little bit, but I feel like this could have been cut shorter and a little bit thinner and more tapered than it actually is. But I actually, like, the styling of this isn't bad. It's not as bad as everyone made it out to be. I'm impressed, but I'm very surprised that the scalp is brown, because that doesn't even make any sense. Okay, and they did the sculpting on his face very well. He has that very regal expression that he has that very regal look to his face that he does in real life, and it's very, very beautiful. Beautiful work, except for that brown scalp. That's really weird. I did buy a second one, so I'll check that one in a bit. I haven't opened the second one yet, because I wanted to do them on camera. But I'll check that one too and see if that was just something weird going on with this one. Interesting. Ooh, he looks handsome if you do that to his hair. I do like what they've done with like his hair. Oh, interesting. I do like the hair color on Jungkook. I think it looks really pretty. Cherry Cook was so good. His scalp is brown too, so that's really interesting. So they stuck with either skin tone or dark colors for all of the members. Interesting. Oh, he's got some gluey hair. You gotta tame that. I like what they did with their side cuts, their sideburns too. I think that's really nice. Jungkook's, I think, out of all of their sculpts is my least favorite. I can't put my finger on it, but something about it feels off. I'm not sure if it's just the paint job on it though. I don't know. Something about it's off. But his nose is delightfully, oh, is his nose? No, his nose is nice and round. Yeah. But it's still like a really good sculpt. Much better than like, my expectations were I was literally expecting like a Hasbro One Direction doll, which was not good. And these are so much better, and they leave so much room for like improvement and just making the dolls look so beautiful. You have so much room for experimentation with customizing. Another thing that I really love about them is there's honestly not a lot of like dolls that have a Asian face type. So it's amazing seeing 7 different Korean face sculpts all right across each other, and they're all so different because the facial structures of every member of BTS is really different and really unique, and it's just beautiful. I love it so much. Oh, they're all so good. Now what I want to do next is I just want to talk about the dolls as a whole. Alright, now the first thing that I want to talk about is the body of these dolls. They have 11 points of articulation, meaning shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees and ankles, as well as the head. The neck pegs on these dolls are actually the same as Monster High neck pegs, which I thought was really interesting. That means it does allow for the dolls to have a good range of motion in the necks instead of just a swivel joint, which would be like side to side. It also allows going back and going forward. If you're used to like a female Ever After High doll, they won't have as much range of motion, but that's because the necks are a lot thicker than a female Monster High doll's neck, and that thinness in the neck allows for more movement. Now, if you compare the BTS doll body types, you'll actually find that they're kind of the medium grounds of other Mattel masculine body types. For example, this is the only Monster High boy doll I've ever been able to own, but it's much slimmer than the BTS dolls. And so the shoulders aren't as wide, the chest is also not as wide, and the muscles aren't as well defined as the BTS dolls were, though it looks like they have very similar underwear molds. And if you compare this Yoongi body to a Ever After High doll, these actually look really similar. Like the muscles are going to be almost exactly in the same place. The curvature of them are very similar. The only difference is the BTS ones are much more well defined. One thing that I found that was really interesting was this body sculpt was actually trademarked for Mattel in 2015, 4 years ago, which was around the time that Ever After High dolls were coming out with, I think, like their second or their third run of dolls, since Ever After High came out in 2013. So given that these molds are almost exactly the same, except for the higher definition in the BTS mold, I wouldn't be surprised if Mattel actually went ahead and repurposed this sculpt for the BTS dolls to save on costs, which is actually pretty awesome because that would bring the cost down for fans who are wanting to get these awesome BTS dolls. It also would explain why we actually only have one sculpt amongst all of the boys. Every single one of them have the same body type, which isn't how they are in real life. That's one thing that I would have really loved to have seen, would be some variation between the body types, like Jimin and Jin and J-Hope all have very different body types. But I'm not really picky, to be honest, just because they did a really good job on the face sculpts, and it would have added so much more time and so much more money with Mattel to have been able to sculpt different body types, I guess. I just wish they had done it. But, you know, it is what it is. Some cool points about this is, I don't know if this camera will pick it up, but there's actually like, on the joints, on the wrist joints, there's a small little bump in the joint that actually prevents it from hyperextending too much. It does limit the movement a little bit, unless you like force it in, but I'm nervous about doing that. But that does mean that it limits the movement a little bit to make it a little bit more lifelike. And the joints inside are going to be the more durable plastic kind of ball and socket joints that you see in the later Monster High dolls as well. Now the feet size across all three of the Mattel masculine bodies are exactly the same. So if you've got some really cool Monster High shoes lying around, totally repurpose them, my dude. Give Jimin like the fucking Chelsea boots he deserves. I don't know if any Monster High dolls have ever had Chelsea boots, but Jimin deserves them if they do. Now I want to talk about the face sculpts. Compared to other like Monster High dolls and things like that, Mattel actually decided to go for a much more realistic approach. If we compare it to this Ever After High doll, you can see the proportions of the eyes are much bigger. In dolls, you tend to find larger eyes because they add more like animation to them and they make them a little bit more appealing, a little bit more pretty. But they stuck with very realistic proportions for the BTS dolls. And another thing that I think is pretty neat is how tight how thickly rooted the dolls are. You can kind of, sorry, this is the only one I have that isn't rooted right now, but if you compare that to this Claudine doll, they almost like doubled the amount of plugs that they put in to make the hair thicker. And I spoke about this briefly in my video talking about the BTS dolls. The reason that they needed the plugs to be so much thicker is because the hair was shorter and they were going to cut the hair short. So by putting more plugs in, they make it harder and harder to find like gaps in the scalp. The size of the head is also a lot more realistic, which I think is very interesting. They really decided to go for a more lifelike approach, which I think, while I haven't gotten around to playing with any of the new Barbies, I feel like you would compare this line of dolls more to the Barbie line than the Monster High or the Ever After High doll line. All in all, I honestly still agree with my initial opinion on these dolls. While they're not beautiful like ball joint dolls or anything like that, these are fantastic made to play dolls and they're really cool. The target for this is definitely going to be the younger fans or the doll enthusiasts, but I really like them and I think Mattel did an awesome job. I know Mattel started hinting that they're going to be releasing more stuff. My bet is that they're going to release those like Speak Yourself tour outfits for the dolls, but I'm really excited and hoping that they'll revisit the BTS dolls more and that they'll add more costumes and maybe like more eras. And I am very excited to see if they add more things or if this is just going to be it. And I'm really satisfied because these are awesome dolls. They're awesome toys. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Love you all so much and remember to keep it poppin'.